Good afternoon. My name is Matt DeSarno. I'm the Special Agent in charge of the Dallas Field Office of the FBI. Today I'm standing proudly with Colleyville Police Chief Michael Miller and Rabbi Charlie Cytron-Walker of Congregation Beth Israel. I'd like to recognize my other law enforcement partners in attendance from Homeland Security Investigations, Texas Department of Public Safety, the Fort Worth Police Department, and others, as well as our community partners from ADL, the American Jewish Committee, and Secure Community Network. Thank you for joining me today. I'd also like to thank Colleyville Center, Good Shepherd Catholic Community, and city officials of Colleyville for the use of numerous facilities and resources in support of this crisis and this investigation. Although a global FBI terrorism investigation is underway, we wanted to provide an update as best we could regarding last Saturday's hostage taking here at the Congregation Beth Israel in Colleyville, Texas. This attack, rooted in anti-Semitism, has shaken the members of Congregation Beth Israel and extends to the entire Jewish community, many of whom we have heard from as they worry about potential and persistent threats. We will each speak and plan to take a few questions as time permits. Chief Miller, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Colleyville. I wanted to begin my remarks by just acknowledging the bravery of the hostages on Saturday. Their actions were nothing short of heroic, and I'm so thankful that they are reunited with their families. Good job, Charlie. We continue to work closely with the FBI on this investigation. Tips and leads continue to come in. For example, on Sunday, we received a tip from a Colleyville resident who had interacted with a suspect on Friday on a bike trail near the Colleyville soccer complex on Pleasant Run Road. CPD officers found a mountain bike that was chained to a fence along the railroad tracks near the soccer complex. And FBI agents were called to the scene to process and photograph the bike. They were able to unlock the bike lock with a key that was found in the possession of the deceased suspect. As we've had time to review the details of the operation on Saturday, I would like to acknowledge the efforts of a few that stood out. As many of you know, we have a consolidated dispatch center with Southlake and Keller. We all share one main police channel, and our dispatchers are actually Keller police employees that are housed at Keller PD. By all accounts, the team working Saturday morning did a phenomenal job. They spoke to the suspect and to the rabbi for an hour and a half before negotiators took over. At the same time, they were inundated with 911 calls, calls from the public, calls from the media, all the while continuing to provide services to the two other cities. Really a fantastic job by these professionals. And as I said on Saturday night, the call originally came in as a disturbance. The first officer arrived on the scene at approximately 10:45 a.m., just 2 minutes after he was dispatched. This officer has 2.5 years experience with the department, and with the insight of a veteran officer, within 1 minute and 23 seconds, he says over the radio, this could be a potential hostage situation. Extraordinary job by this young officer to quickly recognize the gravity of the situation. And this set the tone for the entire incident. I would also like to recognize the FBI's rapid response and enormous resources that they dedicated to resolving the situation. All told, the FBI had 182 personnel dedicated to this incident. Their skilled personnel and aggressive, sound decision-making by FBI Special Agent in Charge Matt DeSarno ensured that we had the right personnel with the right skills on the scene to handle any situation that may evolve. We are eternally grateful for the support provided by the FBI this week. I would also like to thank the Colleyville Police Department and all of the agencies that responded to assist. On-duty Southlake and Keller units deployed immediately when they heard the radio traffic, and soon our partners in SWAT, which also include Roanoke and Trophy Club, quickly made their way to the scene. In total, we had approximately 252 law enforcement personnel from 13 different agencies assist us, and many more city departments and volunteers. I won't take the time to thank them here, but we will be posting a list on our social media to ensure that we recognize their significant contribution. In closing, we live and work in a wonderful community. Our elected officials, city manager's office, and many city departments voluntarily deployed to provide support that day. We're also grateful for the support of the public, both in terms of providing tips and leads, but also for the outpouring of appreciation to the department. Thank you all. At this time, I'll hand it over to SAC Matt DeSarno for his comments and an update on the investigation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief Miller, and thank you for the continued service to your city and community of Colleyville. It's been outstanding to work with you and with this entire community and your department throughout this crisis and this investigation. Again, my name is Matt DeSarno. I'm the Special Agent in charge of the Dallas Field Office of the FBI. My area of responsibility includes Colleyville, and as the Chief just explained, we respond in force when the law enforcement community is in need. The synagogue hostage-taking in Colleyville underscores the continued threat violent extremists pose to religious institutions, particularly Jewish institutions and other Jewish targets. The FBI is and has been treating Saturday's events as an act of terrorism targeting the Jewish community. It was committed by a terrorist espousing an anti-Semitic worldview. It was intentionally targeted in a selected location, the Congregation Beth Israel synagogue. Our thoughts remain with the victims and their families. Our thoughts are also focused on the entire Jewish community. We recognize that the Jewish community in particular has suffered violence and faces very real threats from across the hate spectrum, from domestic violent extremists to foreign terrorist organizations. And because of that, the FBI considers the enduring threats to the community to be among our very highest priorities. The Colleyville attack is a terrorism-related investigation in which the Jewish community was targeted, and the investigation is being led by the North Texas Joint Terrorism Task Force. As the FBI responded to the Colleyville Police Department's request for assistance on Saturday, and before Malik Faisal Akram ever made a single demand to law enforcement, he committed a felony under Title 18, United States Code Section 247, when he forcibly kidnapped 4 hostages while they exercised their right to worship at Congregation Beth Israel. This is a federal hate crime. As negotiators began to engage with Akram, he repeatedly demanded the United States release a convicted al-Qaeda terrorist in exchange for the safe return of the hostages. In doing so, his actions clearly met the definition of terrorism as defined in Title 18 of the United States Code, Section 2331. As my team learned these initial facts, we immediately opened an international terrorism investigation. Let me be clear here. This was both a hate crime and an act of terrorism. The FBI has primary investigative jurisdiction for both of those violations. The FBI's top mission priority remains to protect the United States from terrorist attack. In this case, we brought every tool to bear towards that end, and we continue to do so. On Saturday night, I explained that an independent investigation of the shooting incident would occur. While the results of that review are not final, today I am able to confirm some key details of the final moments of the hostage crisis. As the hours passed and Akram's behavior changed, he wasn't as communicative with the negotiators. He became combative and issued ultimatums and deadlines. As my leadership team and I were making this assessment, Rabbi Charlie and the hostages seemed to have come to a similar conclusion. And just after 9 p.m., 2 near-simultaneous plans of action unfolded. I authorized the FBI's hostage rescue team to make entry into Congregation Beth Israel on the south and west sides of the synagogue. As the teams approached, FBI Dallas SWAT encountered the 3 remaining hostages running from the northeast exit of the synagogue. The teams continued moving to the synagogue and made entry into the building. Akram's death was a result of the deadly force employed by the FBI. I'd like to take an opportunity to highlight the work of the crisis negotiation teams throughout this incident. The professionalism and expertise of the negotiation team, combined with the composure and judgment of the hostages, set the conditions for a successful resolution. This included the negotiated release of 1 hostage shortly after 5 p.m., and it facilitated the tactical delivery of food and medical aid to the hostages. during the crisis. Rabbi Charlie and the other brave individuals who were held hostage are survivors, and they are heroes. This remains an ongoing international terrorism investigation. While I'm limited in the information I can provide in order to maintain the integrity of that investigation, I will confirm that we continue to coordinate with our international partners through our FBI legal attaché offices in the United Kingdom and elsewhere. We continue to work with our intelligence community partners to learn as much as we can about Akram, his associates, and his motivations. We are following up on a high volume of viable leads, as this is an evolving investigation into a terrorist who crossed global boundaries and who was not known to and did not have prior contact with U.S. intelligence or law enforcement authorities. We are rigorously conducting analysis of Akram's associates and media, including his personal devices and online accounts. We're working hard to learn more about how Akram acquired the firearm he possessed, and of note, specifically, no explosives were recovered at the scene. To date, we've had significant success in tracking Akram's movement and identifying persons with whom he interacted while inside the United States. This includes from the time he landed in New York on December 29th until he entered the Congregation Beth Israel synagogue on January 15th. I'd like to thank our partners, to include the New York City Police Department, the Dallas Police Department, the Fort Worth Police Department, and of course the Colleyville Police Department for their assistance in these efforts. I'd also like to thank the members of the public who voluntarily provided critical information in getting us to this point. The FBI is particularly skilled at amassing and mobilizing resources in response to a crisis such as this. In Dallas, we responded immediately with agents and analysts. Our victim specialists arrived to stay with family members as the hours passed. Our Dallas Critical Incident Response Team, including crisis management coordinators, SWAT, evidence response team, and crisis negotiators mobilized. A command post was established and staffed, and it included staff from Congregation Beth Israel. Resources from Quantico and FBI headquarters immediately engaged and began supporting our efforts. Within hours, on-scene resources flowed in from our critical incident response group, and this included the FBI's hostage rescue team, additional crisis negotiators, additional intelligence analysts, behavioral science experts, and additional crisis management coordinators. Throughout the day, we worked through legal process with technology providers and other partners to establish operational advantages. We received immediate support from our local, state, and federal law enforcement partners. And at present, we are leveraging all resources at our disposal to analyze and exploit data and evidence at the FBI laboratory, at our Operational Technology Division, and at the North Texas Regional Computer Forensics Lab. We will continue to devote resources to this investigation as long as needed, and I want to thank each person who has been working steadfastly since last Saturday in the pursuit of justice. As the crisis shifts into investigation, we continue to apply the same rigor to our investigative, intelligence, and operational practices. It's what the American people expect, and it's our FBI mission to protect the American people and uphold the Constitution of the United States. While we have not seen any specific or credible threats related to this incident, my team in Dallas and the entire FBI continue to work with our partners to identify and mitigate threats to the Jewish community and others. Members of all faith communities should not have to be worried about the threat of violence at their services. Since Saturday, my colleagues around the country and the leadership of the FBI have been engaging with the Jewish community to provide updates, to reaffirm our commitment to protecting faith communities, and to highlight available resources. The FBI and our partners at the Department of Homeland Security have significant, valuable training and awareness resources available both online and directly through our field offices across the country. Additionally, we work very closely with the ADL and other similar organizations to increase awareness, provide training, and inform communities about threats. I was struck by the welcome message on Congregation Beth Israel's website. In part, it reads, "We care about you, we strengthen each other, you have something to contribute." I can't think of a better sentiment at this time. Rabbi Charlie was a rock, even amidst his own crisis. He was a leader and a teacher and a protector. He provided safety, orchestrating a daring, successful escape. Personally, his conduct throughout the day provided me with a level of comfort and confidence that is difficult for me to explain. Rabbi Charlie, the heroes you were with, your congregants, your families, have endured unspeakable trauma. We care for you and we seek to strengthen you. And as you have shown us your strength, we hope to do the same for you. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to invite Rabbi Charlie Cytron-Walker to the podium.
Thank you all for being here. I just want to express my gratitude this afternoon. I want to express my gratitude for the FBI, for all of the law enforcement that were involved in this operation, for the hostage negotiators and that whole team, from negotiator Matt to who I was on the phone with, and who was that voice, that calm voice on the other end, on speakerphone the entire time, to everyone that was a part of this. I want to thank Chief Miller and the Colleyville PD because, and in addition to thanking Chief Miller, I also want to thank Mayor Richard because, as I was just telling him before we came in, because of, right, I've been around here for a while, and he was the first mayor to establish a ministerial alliance, an opportunity for clergy and city officials to come together and meet on a quarterly basis. We would get regular updates from police and fire, and so many updates about all the construction, right, Jerry? And because of that relationship, when Chief Miller came on as the new chief a few years ago, I had his cell phone. I knew him personally. I had a relationship. And so when I had the opportunity to text with him and communicate with him about our situation, I had that resource available in that moment. And so a huge thanks to Mayor Richard, a huge thanks to Chief Miller, a huge thanks to everyone who was involved. And along with that, again, we haven't done this enough, just to thank Mike Finfer, who's our current president. But before he was the president of Congregation Beth Israel, he was our house chair and our safety lead. And he was the one who really pushed us as a congregation and as a community to make sure that we had plans in place, to make sure that we had and we took advantage of the trainings that were offered to our community. So I stand up here before you with great gratitude just to be alive, with such appreciation for all of those small little details that add up to something that fortunately was pretty miraculous. And so with gratitude to God, with gratitude for all of those individual human efforts that allow us to be here today, I'm just overflowing with gratitude. And let me also just add one more thank you to all of the media who's been camped out here in Colleyville. Thank you for your time and your energy. I know this hasn't been easy for y'all either. And just with great love to Congregation Beth Israel, great love to the Jewish people, and great love for all of the support that we have received over this past week. It's truly, truly been overwhelming. Thank you.
Okay, we do have a few minutes for questions if there are any. Sir? Is that a question for me? Okay. Yeah, so the question, Jake, is why Beth Israel specifically was targeted. We do have information about that. I think what I'll say here is that we think that Akram was seeking the release of a convicted terrorist who is in federal prison. I didn't on Saturday night, and I don't intend now to give that person any further notoriety. But it was his belief that Congregation Beth Israel was the closest synagogue to where that prisoner was being housed at FMC Carswell.
Mr. DeSarno?
Sean.
Thank you, sir. Can you talk about why the 60 or 70 folks from Quantico came in? Certainly, you have an elite SWAT team right here at the Dallas FBI, as well as the surrounding agencies that are working with you.
I could talk a little bit about that, Sean. So Sean's question is, why did we bring in the team from Washington? So like I mentioned earlier, this was both a hate crime and an act of terror. We learned pretty early on that this was an active hostage situation. That team in Quantico is called the Hostage Rescue Team. They are they are the best team in the country, maybe in the world, in conducting what is the most dangerous law enforcement activity that exists, which is a hostage rescue. Dangerous both to operators and to hostages for obvious reasons. So we made the decision very early in the day, almost immediately after being notified that we had an active hostage situation, to engage with our critical incident response group, let them know what we had, ask them for help, and then they determined that they needed to send 2 full teams down here.
How long did it take them to get here from your first call?
From first call, about 6 hours they were here. They were ready to rock in 6 hours. They were on the ground here in shorter time than that, but it was a quick mobilization. I think it kind of demonstrates the ability, the ability of my organization, that when there is a crisis, we can mobilize resources and get them halfway across the country relatively quickly.
Thanks, sir.
Sir.
You mentioned how the escape coincided with your forced entry plans.
Yes.
So did you know that the rabbi and the other hostages were going to come out? I mean, was there any kind of communication or timing about this? Is it just a complete coincidence, or what can you say about that?
I would not say it was a complete coincidence. What I would say is that we felt like we had pretty good situational awareness from my position with the negotiators and the other awareness tools that we were employing. The hostages had even better situational awareness than we did because they were inside of there. And I think we both kind of realized around the same time that it's time to go. And I authorized the teams to go, and Rabbi Charlie authorized himself and his hostages to get out. And I think that's how it worked. Sir.
In looking into the suspect's past, has it put anybody else on your radar, whether here or elsewhere, and if or if not, what do you need from the public as far as that's concerned?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. The question is whether or not other people are on our radar and what do we need from the public. So right now we have gotten great support from the public. We don't have a specific call to action for the public. We feel like the 15 or 16 days that he spent here in the United States, we have made good progress on identifying his movements and his associations and people with whom he came in contact with. As far as his activity prior to coming here, outside of the scope of the continental United States, we are working closely with international partners, and I'm not going to comment on the work that we're doing in their countries, but we are getting great support, particularly from the UK. Great lines of communication, and the coordination and collaboration is as good as it can be. So I expect that we'll be learning those types of details, and we are learning those types of details currently.
Have you
Sean?
detained anyone locally?
What's that, Sean? I'm
Have you
sorry.
detained anyone
Oh,
locally?
the question is, have we detained anyone locally? We have not detained anyone else locally here in this investigation right now. Jake.
Where and how did Akram acquire the gun?
So right now in our investigation, that's a primary gap that we are working to fill. We are actively focused on that piece of the investigation, and hopefully in the near future we'll have more information that we can release about that. Thanks, Jake. Sir.
Have you identified the man who accompanied Akram into the Al Collin shelter on January 1st, gave him a hug, patted him on the back? Do you know who that person is? Do you feel he's involved in this at all?
So we believe that we have identified all the people that Akram had contact with or interacted with in this area. And that's really, I really am not in a position that could, we still have an ongoing investigation, particularly as it relates to other people. So I can answer the first part of your question that we have identified that person, yes.
Do you consider any of those people accomplices that you've identified?
At this point, the question is, do we consider them accomplices? At this point, all I'm prepared to say is that we have identified them. Yep.
Do you believe that Akram was about to possibly kill a hostage at that point? I mean, what was his mindset, and how concerned were you that something terrible was about to happen?
What I can say is, and I, if Rabbi Charlie wants to comment on this as well too. So my perception of the events were that what I was perceiving and what my leadership team and the negotiators were perceiving was that the situation had gone from bad to significantly worse, and that it was time to take action. And I think that, I don't know if Rabbi Charlie, if you want to.
Yeah. I can honestly tell you that before this, like as things were getting bad, it was really bad. I was absolutely in fear of my life. I was kind of wondering, like, okay, FBI, like, let's, but of course we had no idea. We had no idea. And he went from extremely agitated with the negotiator to all of the sudden very calm like he was earlier in the day, just asking me for juice. And I was highly, highly concerned in that moment. And yet, fortunately, that gave us the opportunity, right, when we had liquid in his hand, right? So that was part of the opportunity that we took advantage of. So.
Rabbi, wait for that.
Yes.
You, in your statement just now, you had said when it got to that point at the end, you became very, very fearful for your life.
Yes.
Having not been in that situation, I would assume from the very beginning you would be very, very fearful for your life. Can you kind of go through the emotions you and the other individuals with you kind of went through that day as it started and progressed through the day? I mean, that was a long time to be in such a stressful environment.
I would just say that we were fearful the whole time, right? It's hard not to be with someone with a gun in their hand, kind of pointing it at you the whole time. The first, hour or so, hour and a half, was extremely, extremely upsetting, extremely terrifying, and there was a long period of calm conversation, of again, once, he was talking with us. He wasn't yelling at us, and we were able to have conversation. He was certainly right. We were constantly looking, right? We were constantly looking for an opportunity to leave. And it was very, very hard to find an opportunity where we all could leave. Right? That was kind of something in all of our minds, right? None of us could imagine one person going and leaving the others behind. And so it took a very long time, and we were very fortunate in many ways, right? And when the opportunity presented itself, we were able to take advantage of it. But it was pretty on edge all day. The public can participate in services through our Facebook Live, program. And so and anyone that would want to come and pray with us, we invite that participation. But we will be having services tonight. We will be having services tomorrow morning, our traditional observance.
Any message for the Jewish community this Shabbat?
The message for the Jewish community this Shabbat, more than anything else, is as best we can. I want to encourage everyone to have a Shabbat Shalom, a Sabbath of peace. God willing, we're able to find a sense of wholeness with our families, with our communities, and that is that sense of peace that comes with every Sabbath, each and every week, and that's our opportunity to help make Shabbat a day of holiness. To make it a unique day out of the entire week. And we all desperately need that sense of peace. And I would extend that not only to the Jewish community, I would extend that to all communities.
This question is for the Special Agent in Charge. Can you take us back to the moment where you had to make that critical decision to send your officers in? Can you take us back to that moment, what you were thinking, what you were feeling?
So what I'll say is that I felt I felt like I had good situational awareness because I had help from, we had help from inside the synagogue. We had a great negotiation team that I highlighted earlier that gave us really good visibility into what was happening. We believed, we had a good idea of the condition of all the hostages and the mindset of the hostage taker. And so it gave me the confidence in the information that I had, combined with the confidence that I had in the abilities of the teams to do their job, that made a very difficult decision, one that I could make confidently.
One quick question. The footage that was inside of the synagogue, was that something you were able to see during that? Did you kind of figure out what was happening inside?
All I'm prepared to say about that is that we felt like we had really good audio coverage of what was happening in there and decent video coverage of what was happening in there. Enough to give the decision makers, the negotiators, and others general situational awareness, but we did not have full visibility of what was happening. The key things we want to know are the condition of the hostages and the mindset of the hostage taker, and we were able to have that. Any more? One more.
That he wrote to the synagogue, can you elaborate on other modes of transportation that he used to get around? And could you elaborate on some of the other places he went in the Metroplex?
Really, all I can. The question was about elaborating on his modes of transportation and other places he went in the Metroplex. So as we still continue to conduct this investigation and determine exact all those things, and we have pretty good fidelity on those things, but I'm not at this point prepared to talk specifically about identifying associates or contacts or those types of. It's just investigative details I can't discuss right now. We'll take one more question.
Just
Sir.
relative to his motive, I mean, is it your belief that when he got on a plane in London, that was his goal from all along to do what he ended up doing? Or along the trip somewhere, did he decide to do this?
So, the statement that I made earlier about his motives is where we are right now, that we believe that he committed an act of terror based on an anti-Semitic worldview in order to secure the release of a convicted terrorist. That's what we believe was his motive.
From the beginning of his travel to here?
That's what you said. What I'll say about his motive. Yeah.
All along that was his motive.
What I believe, I don't know when that motive came about, if it was 7 years ago or 2 days before the attack, but that was the motive for conducting the attack.
Is there a clear indication of his connection to the individual he wanted released?
So the individual he wanted released is a convicted terrorist that foreign terrorist organizations in the past have tried to negotiate the release by exchanging American hostages for that person's release. So he is aware, certainly aware, but I am not aware of any personal connection to that person. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, sir.